Let me guess. You've been told that real medicine comes from a lab. That healing is something invented recently, refined by science, protected by patents. Now let me tell you something that might reset the way you think about your own body. Some of the most powerful healing compounds ever studied weren't discovered, they were rediscovered. Written down thousands of years ago, in the oldest book humanity has, pressed from seeds and flowers and nuts by people who had no microscopes, no clinical trials, no idea what a receptor even was. And yet, again and again, modern researchers run the experiments and find out they were right. These aren't superstitions. They aren't symbols. They're biologically active compounds with real data behind them. And while I was researching this list, I kept running into details that never make it into the popular articles. Safety notes, identity mix-ups between look-alike plants, even a few modern clinical trials most people have never heard of. I've folded all of that in below. I'm going to show you 10 of them, and I'll warn you now. Number 6 was called, in ancient tradition, the cure for everything but death, and the clinical trials on it are leaving oncologists and immunologists genuinely stunned. Number 10, I saved for last, because once you see what's hiding in its shape, you won't forget it. Let's get into it. 1. Oil. The burial herb that actually healed the living. Do you have a burn, a scrape, or angry, irritated skin that just won't calm down? There's a gel that clinical trials confirm speeds wound healing, reduces inflammation in burns, and moisturizes without clogging pores. And it's been used for exactly this for thousands of years. Aloe vera oil, extracted from the leaves of Aloe barbadensis, contains polysaccharides, especially osmannan, along with anthraquinones, enzymes, and vitamins, producing some of the most studied wound healing effects in botanical medicine. Osmannan stimulates macrophage activity, switching on the immune response in damaged tissue. For skin inflammation specifically, aloe's gibberellin content stimulates collagen synthesis, which is exactly why modern dermatology uses it in post-procedure care, and why aloe shows up as the star ingredient in nearly every after-sun and minor burn product on pharmacy shelves today. One distinction worth knowing: the clear, water-rich gel in the center of the leaf is what's used for skin, and it's generally very safe. The yellow, bitter latex just beneath the outer rind is a different substance entirely. It contains anthraquinone compounds at a much higher concentration, historically used as a laxative, but strong enough that health regulators have restricted its use in over-the-counter products. When people say aloe for skin care, they mean the gentle inner gel, not this outer layer. Here's the detail that stands out from Scripture. In John 19, Nicodemus brings a mixture of myrrh and aloes for the burial of Jesus, about 75 pounds of it. That's an extraordinary quantity, even for a burial, showing how medically serious these substances were considered. But aloe's healing role reached far beyond the grave. What Nicodemus applied to a body out of reverence, the living across the ancient world were applying to burns, wounds, and inflamed skin for exactly the reasons science now confirms. Traditional use: fresh aloe gel or cold-processed aloe oil, applied directly to burns, wounds, and irritated skin. Consumed as a juice for inflammatory gut conditions, used in hair care for scalp health. Here's something to picture: a seed so small you could lose it in the folds of your hand, and a story Jesus told about it that's still being taught 2,000 years later. That same seed also happens to produce one of the most practical oils on this entire list. 2. Mustard seed oil. The kingdom oil. that moves mountains of pain. Do you suffer from joint pain, sore muscles, cold hands and feet, or a congested chest every winter? There's a humble oil the ancient world used as the workhorse of medicine for circulation and pain, and its mechanism is now understood down to the physiology. Mustard seed oil contains high concentrations of allyl isothiocyanate, the compound that gives mustard its heat, along with erucic acid and omega-3 alpha-linolenic acid. Applied to skin, allyl isothiocyanate acts as a rubefacient. It creates localized heat, dramatically increases blood flow to the area, and stimulates nerve endings in a way that blocks deeper pain signals. What modern medicine calls counter-irritation therapy, ancient healers used as mustard plasters on the chest for bronchitis and pneumonia. The heat and circulation helped break up congestion and move fluid, the same mechanism they used for joint pain, muscle aches, and cold extremities. Interesting regulatory footnote. That same erucic acid is exactly why pure, pressed mustard seed oil is restricted from sale as a cooking oil in the United States today. Animal studies linking high erucic acid intake to heart tissue changes led regulators to require that pressed mustard oil sold there carry a for external use only label. Millions of people across South Asia still cook with it daily without issue. But it's a good reminder that a compound can be a wonderful topical remedy and still deserve caution about how much of it ends up on your plate. In Ayurvedic tradition, warmed mustard oil is still the classic base for abhyanga, a full-body self-massage practiced daily. In many Indian households, the exact warming massage oil use described below, still alive and well, thousands of years later, just under a different name. Remember the parable? The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed, Jesus says in Matthew 13, the smallest of seeds that grows into something vast. But beyond the parable, mustard was a critical crop throughout the biblical world. In the very regions where Jesus taught, mustard oil was the cooking oil of ordinary people, delivering warmth and anti-inflammatory fats with every meal. Traditional use. Warming massage oil for joint pain, muscle soreness, and circulation. Historically used as a chest rub for congestion, used as a cooking oil in small amounts for anti-inflammatory nutrition, that parable seed grew into a workhorse oil for pain. The next seed on this list did something almost nobody expects from a kitchen spice. It shows up inside the description of a genuine miracle. Coriander seed oil. The oil compared to heaven's food. Do you battle anxiety, restless sleep, or a bloated, cramping stomach? There's an oil from a familiar kitchen seed that research shows reduces anxiety about as well as pharmaceutical drugs in animal models, but with a far safer profile. Coriander seed oil, from Coriandrum sativum, contains linalool as its primary compound at 60 to 80%, one of the most researched terpenes in aromatherapy and clinical botanical medicine. It has documented sedative properties valuable for sleep disorders, but its benefits go further. Research shows it inhibits biofilm formation in bacteria, including strains otherwise resistant to conventional antibiotics. It's anti-inflammatory thanks to its flavonoids, and it soothes intestinal spasms and bloating. And here's the most fascinating modern finding. Preliminary research suggests coriander compounds may help mobilize heavy metals from tissue, acting as a chelating agent, a function ancient healers couldn't have named, but would have recognized by its effects. Quick clarification that trips a lot of people up. Coriander and cilantro are literally the same plant. Coriander is the dried seed. Cilantro is the fresh leaf. and they behave almost like two different herbs entirely. Here's a fun genetic fact I came across while researching this. A specific gene variant, OR6A2, makes a share of the population perceive the fresh leaf's aldehydes as tasting like soap. The seed used for this oil doesn't carry that problem, which may be part of why it's the part that made it into scripture rather than the leaf. This seed appears in the most miraculous food story in the entire Bible. When God provided manna in the wilderness, Scripture describes it in precise sensory detail. It was like coriander seed, white, Numbers 11. See, whether that's exact botanical identification or comparison, coriander sits right beside the Bible's greatest miracle of provision, and that's not nothing. Traditional use: coriander seed tea for anxiety, sleep, and digestive upset. The oil diffused for calm and mental clarity, used abundantly in cooking as both flavor and functional medicine. Manna was compared to a seed. The next entry on this list was compared to something far more visual, an entire flower, and one particular king couldn't stop writing poetry about it. 4 rows of Sharon oil, the flower that healed as beautifully as it bloomed. I am the rose of Sharon and the lily of the valleys. Song of Solomon 2. E. Is your skin dry, inflamed, or showing early signs of aging? Or are you carrying grief or stress that just won't lift? There's an oil pressed from a flower that carries both kinds of healing for the skin and for the heart. The identity of the rose of Sharon is still debated. It may be Cistus ladanifer rock rose, Hibiscus syriacus, or a related species of the Sharon plain. Interestingly, the shrub most garden centers sell today as Rose of Sharon is Hibiscus syriacus, a popular ornamental with big showy blooms, but many biblical scholars now lean toward cistus, or even a wild crocus or tulip, as the more likely original plant. The name seems to have migrated across centuries of translation, more than the plant itself ever did. The cistus species, most associated with the region, yields an oil rich in labdanum resin, compounds with potent antioxidant and antimicrobial properties. Rock rose oil contains alpha and beta-pinene, camphene, and viridiflorol, studied for anti-inflammatory and wound healing effects. Hibiscus oil, another candidate, is extraordinarily rich in anthocyanins and flavonoids, with documented effects on skin elasticity, collagen preservation, and repair of oxidative damage. And emotionally, the very thing Scripture links to this, flower rose-type oils, have been shown to reduce cortisol, lower heart rate and blood pressure under stress, and improve mood. It's worth appreciating just how much flower it takes to make oils like these. True rose oil, for comparison, needs somewhere in the range of 10,000 pounds of petals to yield a single pound of finished oil. Part of why flower-derived oils, throughout history, were reserved for royalty and temples rather than everyday use. The association of roses with love, healing, and renewal isn't poetic accident. The compounds in these flowers deliver measurable neurochemical effects. Traditional use: applied to skin for inflammation, dryness, and aging. Diffused for emotional support, grief, and stress. Used in preparations for sensitive, reactive skin. Solomon wrote poetry about that flower. The next entry in that same poem needs no poetry at all. Its price tag says everything, because it's still, to this day, the most expensive spice on the planet. 5. Saffron oil. The gold of the spice world that healed the mind. Spikenard and saffron, calamus and cinnamon. Song of Solomon 4. Shazi. Are you struggling with depression, anxiety, poor sleep, or a memory that's slipping with age. There's a spice that multiple randomized controlled trials, the gold standard of clinical research, show reduces depression symptoms about as effectively as antidepressants like imipramine. Saffron oil from Crocus sativus contains two key bioactives, crocin and saffronol, the compounds behind saffron's color and aroma, and the subject of some of the most exciting recent research in neurological medicine. The mechanism involves serotonin reuptake inhibition, the same pathway SSRIs target, alongside dopamine modulation and reduced oxidative stress in brain tissue. Saffron also has documented effects on memory and learning, improving cognition in age-related decline, and its antioxidant capacity is among the highest ever measured in a plant compound. Crocin is a carotenoid with extraordinary free radical scavenging power. What genuinely surprised me while researching this one was a completely different body of work: saffron and eye health. Several clinical trials, some running well over a year, have found that regular saffron supplementation improves visual function and appears to slow progression in patients with age-related macular degeneration, one of the leading causes of blindness in older adults. Researchers believe crocin protects light-sensing cells in the retina in much the same way it protects neurons elsewhere in the brain. A spice mentioned in a love poem is now being studied as a genuine intervention for a disease that steals people's eyesight. Saffron appears in one of Scripture's most vivid lists of prized substances for a reason. Its price still reflects today. It remains the most expensive spice on earth by weight. Producing a single kilogram requires hand-picking the 3 tiny stigmas from tens of thousands of individual flowers, all within a harvest window of just a couple of weeks each year. Depending on grade and origin, a kilogram can still run into the thousands of dollars, even now. In the ancient world, it wove through medicine, cuisine, and ceremony, treating depression, insomnia, menstrual disorders, and digestive complaints. Modern psychiatry, and now modern ophthalmology, is rediscovering what the Song of Solomon simply assumed. This golden spice was worth its weight in healing. Traditional use: small amounts in cooking for mood support and antioxidant benefit, saffron tea for anxiety and mild depression, the oil diffused for emotional elevation and mental clarity. Saffron earned its price in gold. The next oil on this list earned something even rarer, a name no other remedy in history has ever carried. 6. Black seed oil, the cure for everything but death. This is it, the oil I teased at the very beginning, and it earns every word of build-up. Let me ask you, if I told you there was a single oil that research links to cancer, asthma, diabetes, and even the antibiotic-resistant bacteria that hospitals can't beat, would you believe me? The ancient world did. They believed it so completely, they gave it a name that stops you in your tracks. Black seed oil, from Nigella sativa, has been used medicinally across the Middle East for over 3,000 years. Quick clarification, since the name causes real confusion at the store. Black seed here is Nigella sativa, sometimes labeled black cumin, but that's a different plant entirely from ordinary cumin. Cuminum, cinnamon, and from another spice, Bunium persicum, which also goes by black cumin in some regions. If a label just says black cumin oil, it's worth checking that Nigella sativa is actually named, since that's the plant this research applies to. The Prophet Muhammad reportedly said, "In the black seed is healing for every disease except death." It was found in Tutankhamun's tomb. The great physician Ibn Sina devoted an entire section of his Canon of Medicine to it. And modern science has found that the ancient claim isn't exaggeration, it's almost an understatement. Thymoquinone, its primary bioactive, has been studied in hundreds of peer-reviewed papers. It has shown anti-cancer activity in lab studies against an extraordinary range of cancer cell lines: breast, colon, lung, pancreatic, cervical, by inducing apoptosis in cancer cells, inhibiting tumor blood vessel formation, and suppressing the inflammatory signaling cancer exploits. Beyond cancer, trials confirm it improves lung function and reduces airway inflammation in asthma. It lowers fasting blood sugar and improves insulin resistance. It's antibacterial against MRSA, and it has immune-modulating properties, now being studied for autoimmune conditions. Given how it affects blood sugar and, in some studies, blood clotting, it's worth knowing that black seed oil can interact with diabetes, medication, and blood thinners. One more case where natural is powerful enough to deserve a conversation with your doctor rather than casual self-dosing, especially if you're already on prescription medication. No single plant compound carries the breadth of clinical research that thymoquinone does. The ancient world named it correctly: traditional use. 1 teaspoon of cold-pressed black seed, oil daily with honey for immune support and general health, applied topically for eczema and scalp health, mixed with honey for respiratory conditions. Black seed was revered from Arabia to Egypt to Persia. The next oil was Egypt's own detox secret, written into one of the oldest medical documents ever discovered, and, strangely enough, into the story of a reluctant prophet trying to run from God. 7. The castor oil. The detox oil that crossed every culture. Do you have trouble with your liver, your gut, constipation, or stubbornly dry skin? There's an oil that's been used for exactly these things since ancient Egypt, and naturopathic medicine still swears by it today. Castor oil sat at the center of Egyptian medicine. The Ebers Papyrus, one of the oldest medical documents ever found, lists it for eye inflammation, constipation, and skin conditions. And in the Bible, the plant itself appears. God makes a castor plant grow rapidly to shelter Jonah from the sun in Jonah 4, a detail that shows how familiar this plant and its properties were. One safety clarification I think is genuinely important here. Castor oil is not the same thing as the raw castor bean. The seed contains ricin, one of the most toxic substances known, concentrated in the leftover pulp after pressing. But ricin doesn't carry over into the oil during proper extraction, which is why commercially processed castor oil is safe for cooking, cosmetics, and medicine, while eating raw castor beans is genuinely dangerous. It's one of nature's stranger contrasts. The same plant produces both a poison and a gentle skin remedy, depending entirely on which part you use and how it's processed. Castor oil, from Ricinus communis, contains a unique fatty acid, ricinoleic acid, at roughly 90% of its composition. A concentration no other common plant oil comes close to. It binds to EP3 receptors throughout the body, involved in smooth muscle function, inflammation, regulation, and pain response. Applied as a pack to the abdomen, it shows documented anti-inflammatory effects, a practice popularized in the 20th century by the American healer Edgar Cayce, and still used in naturopathic medicine today, that appears to reduce inflammatory markers and support liver and lymphatic function. Studies show castor oil packs raise glutathione, the body's primary internal antioxidant. On skin, its high molecular weight means it penetrates slowly, forming a protective occlusive layer that locks in moisture and creates an environment where damaged tissue can repair. Beyond medicine, ricinoleic acid's unusual chemistry has also made castor oil a genuine industrial workhorse. It's a base ingredient in certain biodegradable lubricants, nylon production, and even some biodiesel blends, a strange modern afterlife for a plant that once sheltered a prophet from the desert sun. Traditional use. Castor oil packs on the lower abdomen for liver support and gut health, applied topically for dry skin, thickened cuticles, and hair health. Used as an occasional internal laxative in small amounts. That oil sheltered a runaway prophet. The next one built a symbol of God's watchfulness into the temple itself, and it's hiding an anti-aging secret human skin has been asking for ever since. 8. Almond oil. The oil that built the lampstand of God. Worried about stretch marks in pregnancy, eczema or psoriasis, or protecting your skin from the sun? There's an oil used for exactly these purposes for thousands of years, and nutritionally, it's one of the densest carrier oils in existence. Almond oil, from Prunus dulcis, is extraordinarily rich in vitamin E in the alpha-tocopherol form, at levels that provide real antioxidant protection when absorbed through skin. It contains oleic and linoleic acid in a ratio that closely matches the sebum of healthy human skin, which is why skin absorbs it so readily. Clinical studies show measurable reduction in stretch marks when applied during pregnancy, improved skin barrier function in eczema and psoriasis, and protection against UV-related oxidative damage. The vitamin E, absorbed topically, genuinely neutralizes free radicals in skin cell membranes, slowing the oxidative damage that drives aging and disease. 2 safety notes worth knowing. First, the almond oil used for skin and cooking is sweet almond oil. There's a separate variety, bitter almond, which naturally contains amygdalin, a compound that breaks down into cyanide and is genuinely toxic in more than trace amounts. Sweet almond has been selectively grown for thousands of years, specifically because it lacks this trait. Second, almond is a tree nut, and anyone with a nut allergy should treat it exactly as they would eating almonds, patch testing before using it on skin, since topical reactions in allergic individuals are well documented. And the symbolism? God told Moses to design the tabernacle's lampstand, the menorah, with cups shaped like almond blossoms. Aaron's rod miraculously budded with almonds. The almond was chosen as a symbol of divine watchfulness, the first tree to bloom in spring. The people who worked under the desert sun with almond oil on their skin were protecting themselves from oxidative damage in the most direct way possible. Traditional use. Applied as a full-body moisturizer and massage oil. Used as a carrier oil for diluting stronger essential oils. Applied to the scalp for hair nourishment and growth. Almond fed the lampstand of God with light. The next oil hid in something far less glamorous, the fabric on everyone's back, and it turns out to be one of the most powerful anti-inflammatory foods ever studied. 9. Flaxseed oil. The Omega Warrior. Do you live with chronic inflammation, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, or dry, inflamed skin that won't settle? There's a seed oil that is the richest plant source of omega-3 fatty acids, the ones your body partially converts into EPA and DHA, the same essential fats found in oily fish. Flaxseed oil is the richest plant source of alpha-linolenic acid. Clinical research shows it significantly lowers inflammatory markers including C-reactive protein and interleukin-6, the cytokines that drive chronic inflammatory disease. Studies confirm it lowers LDL cholesterol, reduces blood pressure, and protects the cardiovascular system. Its lignans, phytoestrogenic compounds in the seed, show anti-cancer properties, particularly in hormone-sensitive cancers, and separately, Some research suggests these same plant estrogens may help ease hot flashes and other symptoms during menopause, making flaxseed one of the few oils on this list, with research spanning almost the entire female life cycle. For skin, its omega-3s support the membranes of skin cells, keeping them fluid and able to exchange nutrients and waste efficiently, which is why dry, inflamed, reactive skin often improves dramatically with regular use, because the inflammation is being addressed at the membrane level, at its source. One practical note from my own research that most articles skip: flaxseed oil is one of the most fragile oils that exists. Its abundance of polyunsaturated fat means it oxidizes and turns rancid quickly when exposed to heat, light, or air. Exactly why the traditional use insists on never cooking with it. If you buy it, keep it refrigerated in a dark bottle and use it within a few weeks of opening, or you're consuming a spoiled oil that's already lost. Most of what made it valuable, and the flax plant hides in plain sight throughout Scripture as linen. The priests wore linen. The tabernacle curtains were linen. Jesus' burial cloths were linen. Flax was so central to the biblical world that it was stored on rooftops. Remember Rahab hiding the spies under stalks of flax in Joshua 2. Traditional use: 1 tablespoon of cold-pressed flaxseed oil daily in food, never cooked since heat destroys its omega-3s. Applied topically for dry and inflamed skin. Used as a linseed preparation for wound healing in traditional European folk medicine. 9 oils down. 1 left, and I saved it for last on purpose, because its secret is hidden in plain sight, in its very shape. 10. Walnut oil, the brain food of the ancient world. And here we are at the final oil, the one I saved for last. Do you want sharper memory, faster mental processing, better sleep, and a healthier heart all at once? Before I explain, do one thing: pick up a walnut and really look at it. That wrinkled, 2-lobed nut looks almost exactly like a human brain. Ancient physicians, following the doctrine of signatures, believed that was a sign of its purpose. And the extraordinary thing is, they were right. Walnut oil is the richest plant source of alpha-linolenic acid after flaxseed, making it a powerful anti-inflammatory omega-3 source. But what makes it unique is its polyphenols, particularly elagitanins, which break down in the gut into urolithins, the same compounds found in pomegranates that researchers are now studying for brain and cellular health. Clinical trials confirm that regular walnut consumption improves cognitive performance, memory, and processing speed across age groups. Studies show it reduces LDL oxidation, improves arterial flexibility, and lowers inflammatory markers system-wide. Its omega-3 to omega-6 ratio is uniquely favorable, close to what ancestral diets maintained before industrial seed oils distorted the modern ratio beyond recognition. And there's this. Walnut oil contains melatonin, a compound almost never found in plant foods, making it relevant to sleep in a way no other oil on this list can claim. Quick clarification for anyone shopping for this oil. The walnuts used here are English or Persian walnuts, Juglans regia, not black walnut. Juglans nigra, a different and more bitter species that contains a compound called juglone, historically used as a natural dye and even a mild herbicide. And like almond, walnut is a tree nut, so the same allergy caution applies before using it on skin or in food. This is also, quietly, one of the few biblical oils with a direct line to a diet neurologists actively recommend today. Walnuts are a core food group in the MIND diet, a nutrition plan designed by dementia researchers and shown in long-term studies to slow age-related cognitive decline. Modern neuroscience, once again, catching up to a nut shaped like the very organ it protects. Walnut trees grew throughout the ancient Middle East. The Song of Solomon 6:11 references the nut garden. Across Greco, Roman, Persian, and Hebrew cultures alike, its oil was used in cooking, skin care, and medicine, and as a brain tonic, a function modern neuroscience has finally given a mechanism. Traditional use: cold-pressed walnut oil in salad dressings and low-heat cooking, applied topically for dry skin and scalp nourishment, used in traditional medicine as a brain tonic. 10 oils. 10 times the ancient world reached for something we're only now proving in a lab. Notice the pattern. None of these came from a factory. They came from seeds, resins, flowers, bark, and roots pressed by people who trusted results over theory, because results were all they had. And over, when modern researchers finally run the numbers, the ancient instinct turns out to be right, sometimes even down to safety concerns they had no way of naming, but seemed to sense anyway. That should make you wonder what else we've overlooked. What other old wisdom we dismissed too quickly, only to reinvent it later and call it a breakthrough. If this shifted something for you, tell me in the comments which of these 10 you're most curious to try. Hit like and subscribe for more ancient wisdom, confirmed by modern science. Thanks for watching to the very end. This video is for educational purposes only and is not medical advice. Essential oils can be potent and may interact with medications or health conditions. Always dilute properly, patch test, and talk to a qualified healthcare professional before using them, especially if you are pregnant, nursing, or managing a health condition